Maybe you've been on a webinar or an online course and you said, man, I can probably do that myself. Well, in this episode of the 1004 Show, it's episode 91 with Bret Fisher of BretFisher.com. We talk about his online course that gets up to 500 new customers a day. Yep, a day. And how does he do it? We go through every step that he does. So why online courses might be good for people. What is the steps necessary to get this online course out and in front of people, what story you need to be telling with this, and finally, giving away your best content. Yep, episode 91 with Bret Fisher, BretFisher.com, how to maximize online courses. Are you ready? Keep watching. Online courses, something that you've been fairly successful with over the last few years. What got you into them?
I wish I could take all the credit. A lot of times when you look back at your career, you figure out the things you're good at or that you are known for weren't even your original idea. And it started mostly because I really got into a technology around called Docker. It's a technology that helps you run servers on the internet and deploy software faster. And it kind of created a mini ecosystem in the technology industry over the last 5 years. And I started it using on my own projects in my own company. And then I started just wanting to teach others about it because I'm naturally a teacher and a talker. That's kind of how I've always been an extrovert. And Docker actually approached me and said that we've got this training company, Udemy, that's bugging us for a course, but we don't do courses. Would you like to do a course for them? And so we did the meetups and we talked about things, and they really wanted a big commitment. They wanted a 6 to 9 hour course, which I don't do anything halfway. So I realized that was going to be months of time to do that much of high-end content and high quality stuff. And they really wanted a top shelf sort of thing because they already had 30 courses on Docker, but they wanted one that was the next level quality, production value, all of the stuff from someone who is evidently an expert. And they were thinking at the time that I was an expert and I was sort of faking it.
Well, why do you think you weren't an expert?
Well, because I think, it's everyone, when you talk about a topic, whether you're at a conference or in front of people, people assume that you have this very deep vertical knowledge about that topic, and you maybe don't. You just know a very niche thing for that presentation. So I do feel confident in Docker. I use it every day. I help companies in my consulting, but it's one of those things where I just had a feeling that the audience that I was talking to at Udemy and at Docker and the first students thought I was smarter than I really was, right? And that tends to be the case, right? In a lot of places, you start asking questions, and someone's knowledge can only go so deep in a topic. So, I was a little bit insecure about the whole thing and knew that it was going to be months of work. And so being a business starter for 15 years, I knew what the risks were. I knew that we were going to have to pull out business savings and maybe take a loan out and basically bootstrap this thing ourselves and go. I was going to have to close down my consulting business because we needed it. They wanted it.
So Docker's getting told by Udemy that they want this deep dive course. And they say, hey, do you want to do it? So Docker isn't willing to pay you to do this. They just are going to endorse it, basically.
Right. They're going to hand me off. Right. Exactly. And in the Docker community, like in a lot of open source communities, they have sort of a program to nominate or appreciate certain people that are working hard in the community. And with Docker, it's called Docker Captains. And I was lucky enough to be one of the first of those. So it gave me a little bit of notoriety around being a community leader. And I had started a meetup here, the physical meetup and stuff like that. So long story longer there, Udemy asked for this course. I him and haw for a couple of weeks. My wife's like, you got to do it. You got to give it a shot. You'll always wonder if it would work. We did it. It took longer than we thought. It's amazing. It takes about 40 hours to make 1 hour of real content when you're talking about curriculum, 40 hours of calendar time. So I ended up hiring my wife to do editing and getting friends to give me feedback. And I hired Paul Chen to do some recording on site and lighting and recording expertise. And so really tried to get a community to help me do it. And we launched on April 1st. And ever since then, it's been a roller coaster ride of just more people signing up and singing his praises than I could possibly ever expect. So we tripled our goal for the year financially and in all numbers. And so now we've doubled down and we're going to the next course and the next course.
When you're talking about the curriculum in 40 hours equaling 1 hour of actual time, what's involved in that 40 hours? Is it because you aren't good on camera and it takes a lot of practice? Is it something else? Like, because it seems like a lot when you really break it down, that 40 times to get 1 hour. I mean,
it sounds crazy, right? It sounds like, who would want to do that? And actually, it was advice that was given to me by a friend who's very popular on Pluralsight, a competing platform for technology training. And he basically said, 40 hours, you should plan out 40 hours, a full week. If you get a full finished, polished 1 hour at the end of the week that you can ship, then you're doing good. I'd say that it starts with, you've got to plan. So it's a curriculum-based situation. So you want to tell a story. Like any good conversation you have with an audience has got to have a good story to it. So it starts with the story arc of why are we here, and then you start breaking things down into little bite-sized nuggets for the internet, and then you have to create test code or test ways for them to validate their learning. And so you start breaking that down, and you end up with these crazy spreadsheets of hundreds of topics, and then you actually start recording. And then you go in, and then, yeah, of course, you're editing, you're recording 3 or 4 times at least on everything. Like Paul Chen taught me, one more time for safety, as he says. Then you go into editing, and then sort of feedback, polishing, and finally shipping. So yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, for safety. That's interesting. So I don't know if you know this, but in town I host a business show formerly called Hampton Roads Business Weekly. They just changed the name to Connect, and when we do intros, they like to do it 2 or 3 times just to make sure.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's nice so that I don't have to go back if something was messed up or whatnot.
Sure, exactly.
So break down the actual course. So you ended up getting 8 hours of that. Is there, when you were talking about some of those pieces, is it like quizzes and stuff where they can test? Like what did you mean by like how they could test their kind of, or validate their pieces?
Yeah. So that's a lesson I learned the first course was, I put in a lot of screen shares, right? So you're showing, because it's a technology course, so you're showing the screen a lot, and you're doing, it's not a code course necessarily, but you're involved with dealing with code. It's almost like a course where you're taking other people's code and you're making it work on the internet on servers. And so but you still have to give them the commands they're going to type. And one thing I've definitely learned is, after tens of thousands of students, is everybody learns differently. Some people will watch your videos, and even though you're expecting them to follow along with their keyboard and type things, they're not. They're just watching. And then they're expecting an assignment later where they can stop the video and spend 10 minutes doing something and then come back and look at the answer. And then other people don't do the assignments. They just want to follow along with the video and actually type what you're typing. So I've learned that you definitely need to provide enough. And I've gone back, and the nice thing is, since it's a living course, like most courses on the internet, I'm updating it. I'm revising things. I have a list of probably over 50 errors and problems that students have found, or inconsistencies. And then the internet keeps changing, the software keeps changing. So things that worked 6 months ago don't work anymore, and you have to fix it.
Yeah, on one of our sites, 1004.com, we have, I think, 3 or 4 different ways to search any different type of just video. And there's the put it in the search bar, go through and hover over a place, go this way. And it's because people are like, well, this is how I need to find it. And so I'm like, all right, I guess we'll invest in different ways to make this easy just for you to
Right.
search this. Oh, well, some people are like, well, I want this video that's 20 minutes to be 10 2-minute videos. Okay.
That's right.
Well, we're gonna make a list of all these things that you want, and when we feel like there's enough people looking for it, it's important there. And so what's interesting is, so I just signed a book deal recently,
Nice.
and yes, thank you. It's called Anomaly: How to Finally Stand Out from the Crowd. And one of the things that we're doing with it is a course associated with it. And so there's going to be the book, written.
Yep.
But then when people want to see how to do that thing, very similar to a technical course, even though this is more of like an exposure book, people still need to know and be able to be like, well, when you said go on Facebook and do this, what does it actually look like? So I think that's important that you provide it in a bunch of different ways. So for someone that might be thinking about doing an online course, how did Udemy become the place that was good for you, and then you didn't go and look at other places too? I know that Docker and Udemy kind of reached out, but did you ever look at other places? I mean, do you ever look at other places?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Luckily having a background in startups and business ownership, it wasn't, it's one of those things where you're around this industry long enough in terms of the startup industry and the small business industry, and you learn about like doing your due diligence and figuring out the financials and what best and worst case scenarios, because it's probably never going to be either. It's probably not going to be the best case and not going to be the worst case. And so I looked at a lot of platforms. I got feedback from colleagues that I knew in the industry that actually had done courses before. Not everybody's successful. Not everybody is great on camera. And so I think, especially with Udemy, the thing I was most nervous about was there was already so much content out there. But you kind of learn in the startup space that the fact that there's already existing tools or in anything, that's a validation of a market. And so you don't necessarily want to be the first to create something that's never existed in the human race. I mean, that's a potential for great success, but also a much, much more likely potential for great failure. So,
because if people aren't searching for it, there might not be, no one else is looking for it. So there's not a big enough, I think people say product market fit, is it actually there? Are there people searching for this? And it is. You just got to win from those people that are already there.
Yeah, and that was definitely true. Everywhere I went, there was a Docker course of some fashion. But what I felt in my gut was that, I had been speaking at conferences for years. I had been running meetups for years. I had done private corporate training, and even when I was just an employee, not that that's a bad thing, but as an employee, I would find opportunities to get in front of people and talk and teach people, and I loved helping people learn. In fact, that's really the only reason I'm in IT to begin with. Is just helping other people. And I had this gut feeling the whole time that as long as I pick a place where I can get support, and that's the one thing that Udemy did offer me, is that they had a team that works with basically the top 1% of authors, and they were willing to support me. And they had the marketing and the ad expertise and the expertise on what makes a good course, and they had lots of FAQs, where there was a lot of other competitors out there that either were trying to be like they were the underdogs. And actually, a friend of mine, Kevin Griffin, both he and I actually started years ago creating courses for another startup online course business. And I had experienced a little bit, it was only like a 1 to 2 hour course about what it's like to fail, because basically I got no royalty checks. No matter how much I put into it, they just didn't have the students. And the one thing I knew about Udemy was they had 17 million accounts or subscribers, and they were truly worldwide. They sold in, I don't know, most, 170, 180 of the countries in the world they were selling in. So I knew that the reality of technology nowadays is that the U.S. isn't even the number one market, or it's not, and it might be right now only because we have maybe the financial capability to buy things. But there are definitely markets in India and China and so many other countries. So, like, for example, in my breakdown of my course, U.S. is only 39% of the 37,000 people that have bought it. And so as the more I sell the course, the lower the U.S. stands in the rankings. And so places like India is top 3, Germany, and even countries that you don't necessarily think of as like Germany. I wouldn't think of that as a huge amount of people compared to the U.S., but they have a lot of tech, and they have that industry. The tech industry there is very strong. So I've learned a lot about how to place the fit of your course for your audience, and I think Udemy really helped me a lot with that. When I did the explanation, or the not the explanation, but I did the research on the others, I found actually YouTube videos of other people explaining the different comparisons. So ironically, I was using other courses or other people that were creating content to help me figure out where I should create my own content. And I think Udemy tended to end up being the number one.
Well, I think that's smart, right? Go to where there's a lot of people. 17 million people, that's a lot of people. And both of us obviously live in the United States of America, but one thing that I've noticed is don't try and just, work with Americans, right? Don't try and just help, Americans. There's people all across the world. And because the internet now being so easy to use, you can find clients in other places. And oftentimes those people will pay you more than, people in America. So I think that's good.
Yeah.
I was looking at your Docker course, and I thought it was the presentation of it was very well laid out. What are some kind of like 101 tips to put together like a really polished outline, or what is publicly facing to get someone to buy?
Yeah, of course. I think the first thing is a good title, like a book, right? It's the cover. The cover and title of the book are what sells it. The label of the wine sells the wine more than the wine itself. So having a great title that's unique and uses as many of the buzzwords without sounding too buzzwordy. Having a promotional video that you spend more time on that 30-second or 2-minute ad video and promo video than you would any other video in the course. You do as much production, in terms of the graphics or the backgrounds, that video itself, I think, because people are going to see that video first, and it's that whole primacy effect or whatever, the first 7 seconds. But when you get into the course, tell a story and put yourself in the videos. I think one of the biggest feedbacks I've got is I've started to add myself in the lower, even when I'm doing coding, as much as I can add webcam video of myself, I always get positive feedback about that. For some reason, if the things you're showing on the screen are boring, the fact that they can see you and watch you and you're talking to the camera, that's inherently more interesting to them than just staring at a web page or some spreadsheet or code or something.
How do you do that? So you're just shooting 2 separate videos? How do you do your face and the screen?
Yeah, so my setup is I use Camtasia. One of the nice things is Camtasia works on Mac and Windows, and the file formats are the same. So if I need to record on a different operating system, I can in the same project. And then it allows me to choose a webcam, so the webcam's shooting at me, and then I'm looking at the screen that's being recorded by the same computer. So it's all one computer with the monitor, and then you can pick. So the choices you have in the Camtasia is pick your mic, pick your webcam, and pick screens that or the screen that you're gonna record. And it helps to have like a multi-monitor setup where you can have maybe your notes or what you're going to be doing on one screen, and the other screen is the one you're actually recording on. So you can actually get really cheap USB plug-in monitors nowadays that just for like $100 to $200, you can get a nice sized monitor that's quite small that you can get on Amazon that just plugs in with USB and no extra power. And so even when I'm on the road, I can actually record using just webcam video and then the second screen that fits in my laptop backpack.
Solid, very solid information. When you failed on that course before, do you think that you could get back on that platform with this course and do okay?
That's a good question. I haven't checked into that particular one lately. I would guess no, only because the amount of effort it would take. So, a lot of my course is using features of Udemy where there's all these links and they have downloadable things, and there's some features in there where you can actually do assignments and give them quizzes. So that's a part of their platform that makes them sticky from an author's perspective, right? Because they want you to stay on their platform. One of the benefits, by the way, of Udemy is that you own your content. A lot of the platforms will require you to hand over the ownership of your content, and that's something you have to be very careful about. And that's one of the things that gave me comfort with Udemy initially. Was the worst case was I just take all my content and I walk away, and I could always still do that if somehow the platform became unusable or just wasn't working for me anymore. So the thing with that other platform was that because they're a subscription thing like Pluralsight, they have to approve your topic even before you make the topic, and you have to. So they have sort of like program managers that decide what content they want, and so you would have to give them sort of almost like a proposal of the content. Then they would approve it. Then you would make it, and then you would hand it over, and then they would completely own it. So the problem with a lot of these places is if I even took this course and gave it to them, I could no longer put it on Udemy. It would be a tricky situation.
So really use the platform the way that it was designed. I think social platforms are that same way. You know, if you take a YouTube video and you upload it to YouTube, it's gonna do okay. If you take that
Yeah,
link from YouTube and post it on Facebook, it's not going to do as well because Facebook has its own video feature that they want you to upload, and so you
yeah,
have to use the platforms the way that they were designed. And I think oftentimes people try to, I don't know, game the system when they're like, I don't know why these results aren't there, and it's like, this content's great. I'm like, yeah, but you didn't play the game that platform wants you to
that's
play.
right.
What was the what was that course platform that didn't work?
Oh, Wintellect now.
Okay, never heard of
Great,
it.
great people. Yeah, it was a very niche market, and I think they're still around. Great team. I think it's a tough marketplace, and they were looking for a specific Microsoft segment at the
Okay,
time. They were focusing on Microsoft content, and that's what my focus was at the time, was Microsoft. So it was at that time, it was really just taking what I already knew and just putting it in a PowerPoint and talking about it on camera. Now, with these courses, now I'm realizing that um, the courses, they what do they say, that the best way to learn something is to teach it, and that's absolutely true. Even though you think you know something and you're using it every day in your work life, you have to teach it to other people, and you're inherently going to just by the nervousness of having to stand in front of people or commit to telling someone that you think you know what you're talking about, you're going to end up learning more about it. So
sure. So that course or that not that platform Udemy, they also go to bat for you, right? They run ads for you. They're
yeah,
17 million people that are running ads for you. I mean, that's helpful
yeah.
because they want to make money. How does that kind of breakdown look? Like, what do they give you? Why is there always a discount on the price point? Because
Right.
it's like 90 or 95% off. And so are these all little tricks that they've learned that work, or kind of how does that game work?
Yeah, and it's like the rest of the internet. It's never static. I think having only been on their platform for and working with them for a little over a year, I did some, when I did my due diligence, I looked at years back of Udemy, the company, Udemy, the startup, and found that, over the years, because the competition's gotten tough and the way the internet's sort of evolving, maybe it's the app model on the internet where everything's 99-cent apps now and freemium apps and all that. The course platforms are kind of doing the same thing where Udemy's courses are over time, year by year, tend to get cheaper and cheaper. They used to be average of $30 on sale. Now they're at usually between 10 and 20 when they're on sale. I usually get the biggest chunks of new users when they're on sale for 10. So I tend to tell people that out of all those students, very few of them have ever bought it at $200, which is the retail price of the course. Someone recently told me a lot of times with these kind of companies, the sale price is the real price, and I think that that's true. I don't expect students to buy it at 200. In fact, sometimes I see people buy it, and because they get a 30-day money-back guarantee, they return it when they find out there's a coupon. And I actually put a coupon on my own website because I really want them to use my coupon. So the way that Udemy works is because the platform itself is free. You can launch a course on your own. I think the minimum course length is 30 minutes. Anyone can put a course on there. It's kind of like YouTube in that way to teach anything. And at that point, you determine your own success. And it's only once you start to get a lot of 4.7 star reviews out of 5 stars, and you really start to get hundreds and hundreds of reviews. You get potentially 1,000 or so purchases. That's when I think their algorithms start to pay attention to you. And I didn't really have a leg up in that. They didn't really do me any favors or in terms of gaming the system on my behalf. They were just giving me advice. Things like don't do this in the course, or make sure you put this in the course, or this is too long, or this is too short, or whatever. So that's where they really helped me. I think when I launched, I was really using my very minimal little audience to try to get some buzz around it, and then eventually, maybe because I don't know where I don't actually didn't do the analysis on where the original few hundred came from, but eventually I got picked up by their algorithm, and that's when they started putting me in ads and putting me in their marketplace. Now, the way that they're very public about all of their financials. So if you bring people in through your own links, you get 97% of the income, which is great, because if you have an audience, you can give you can give this thing at whatever price you want to your audience without any Udemy involvement, and you get to keep everything but the credit card fee and a little tiny slice off the top. Once they start putting it in your marketplace, if their marketplace search gets people to your course, then you get 50% of that cut and they keep 50%. Then if they actually put an ad for your course specifically on Facebook, which is the one place for them that really works for me, I get a large portion of my new users that are new to Udemy, usually altogether. Those people come from Facebook, and because they're having to run the ads on my behalf, and I don't have any real control over what that ad says or when it's run, I get 25% of that cut. So I could totally opt out of all of that. They actually have a button in there, a couple of buttons where you can say, I'm opting out of sales, I'm opting out of all platform marketing, and then you really are the complete controller of your own course. But then you have to do all the work of marketing and sales and bringing an audience in. And a lot of people they want to be experts in their topic, not necessarily experts in selling online. So it gives you a nice choice.
Does Docker promote this at all?
Yes, they talk about it. They promote things that I do for free. So because Docker is sort of the stewards of an open source community of this Docker container technology, their attitude is sort of that they won't directly promote my paid offerings just because they really want the learning resources for their community to be available for free. So what I just work out with them is where I will put out little free things or little tip videos, new blog articles, and they will promote that in their email newsletters and their Twitter feed and stuff like that. And then those things usually at the end will have an ask, something about, if you want more information on this, check out my course on Udemy, stuff like that. So at the end of the day, I really want to give a lot of this stuff, I want to figure out a way to get this content to as many people as possible. And if that means, giving the best stuff away over time in certain things like YouTube, that's kind of my long-term plans is to give the best stuff away for free. But if you want a higher level of stuff, then if you want the complete package with all of the training syllabus and the tools that Udemy provides you, then you can pay a little bit for it. So.
Now the course is set it and forget it though, right?
Sort of.
You get a client, are you still doing work with them? You get a new customer, they buy the course, like, are you doing anything with them?
Yeah. So when you look at sort of the top 1% or 0.5 or 0.1% or whatever of the courses on Udemy, because they have 30,000 authors and 40,000 courses or something like that. It's just an insane amount of stuff. But when you're talking about that top 3,000, 5,000 courses, the qualities all kind of remain the same on the internet, where the course is long. It's at least 6 to 9 hours. And the author keeps it updated and fresh with new content at least once every couple of months, hopefully once a month, because they actually date the courses that say, last updated 1/2018, stuff like that. And then the third quality there of good courses that really rise to the top is that there's a Q&A system where new students are constantly asking questions, and for you to be in there and helping students. Now, at my level, because I'm getting anywhere between 100 and 500 new students a day, I have actually brought in help. So some of the advice you get eventually, and you can look this up in the FAQs on Udemy, is to look for your brightest pupils, the people that are sort of the all-stars in the course, and then ask them if they want to come on board, and you pay them a little bit, maybe a percentage, maybe a small monthly fee or something, maybe per hour, depends on how you want to do it. And they help you with the FAQ and the questions and answers, because quite frankly, if I spent 5 hours a day answering all the questions, I wouldn't be making any new content or being able to do anything new. So
sure. One thing that I think is interesting about social networks, or kind of just the internet in general, is that not everything is indexed. So, and I say that in non-tech words as like searchable, repeatable content, basically. So does your Udemy course pull out some of those words that are indexed when people might be searching for them, and then through SEO and the Google wizard provide it back to people who might be looking for it? Like in those forums, copy from your outline, stuff like that? Or are you really at the thrones of Udemy to just hopefully do that on their own?
Yeah. It's like it depends. So when it comes to the Q&A, so first off, I have lots of feedback to Udemy all the time, and they're very receptive of feedback. And I find bugs, all the time in the platform because I'm using it every day to as much um, as I can. And I have now a team of people my wife has actually come on board, and I have a couple of, I actually have now, I think at this point, 5 subcontractors helping part time with certain things, whether it's closed captioning because we don't have, the world isn't full of native English speakers, so a lot of people use the closed captioning to really help. So, long story longer, there is the public content is really only the videos you give away for free, which for me is like 5 videos, and then the sort of the landing page. The question and answer are not public, and I really wish they were, because it's not like you're giving away the farm with the question and answers, but it is SEOable potentially content. It's great stuff. So that is not public. What I'm doing on my own, though, and actually this is based on student feedback. They're actually wanting this stuff public. Is we're trying to figure out, how can I, can I take the best questions out of here and put it in a newsletter that's public, or put it in even just a GitHub repo, which is a tool on the internet for IT companies to put their software on in public for open source, and maybe putting it there where the software people already are in a way that they can easily find the questions and answers. So one thing I'm experimenting with is taking popular questions and putting them on Twitter, and then the answer is a link to GitHub where there's a forum feature in there called GitHub Issues, and I actually put the question and answer in there, and then I get a conversation going, and that's actually something I just started in the last couple of weeks. So tons of experimentation. Absolutely. I really want greenfield content that is out there, that's available for everyone as much as possible. So unfortunately, I wish there was a button that said make the Q&A public, because I think that would really help a lot of people and make it much more findable in terms of Google.
I love that. SEOable. So we have
SEOable.
So we recently started something called Ask Zack, where I basically just take questions from people, and one of them was from
Nice.
a realtor, and he's like, I want to grow my social platforms, and I'm like, you need to be careful, because you can build this up, but people aren't going to be searching for you on Facebook, like best realtor in Virginia. So you need to make sure that you're doing something comparable that people can be going to that website to, that's indexed, that's
Yeah.
repeatable, searchable. And he was like, no one ever taught me that. And I'm like, yeah, that's that kind of scam that the internet, tells you. You get on Twitter, you get on Facebook, you build these things up, and that's great. But people aren't searching for you, and that content that you're providing them, they can't find. And I think that's something that not a lot of people know about, or at least non-techies really. And it's hurting a lot of brands that are trying to be like, why can't I be seen? And I'm like, well, this is
Right.
why. So
Yeah.
this
Can
is
you imagine what, if you think about it, like to that, on more on that topic, is like there's probably some really great tweets from 2 years ago. Never going to find them on the internet. I mean, they're still there, but Google or no one else is really going to get you to that on the front page of a search.
well, that's why like a Quora or a Reddit is so popular for something like that, because it does live forever. And it's not that Facebook post or that tweet doesn't live forever. You're just not going to find it, like you said.
Yeah.
This is really good stuff. How do you leverage reviews? How do you take advantage of the reviews that people give you?
Yeah. Reviews are awesome and sort of cringeworthy all at the same time. It's like the feedback absolutely across the board is always something that we all crave, and I love the feedback. I particularly love it when it's negative, because it gives me a chance to think about what they're really trying to say. Because quite often, if you get complaints, you have to read it over and over again to really understand. Your first impulse to reply on the internet is always probably the wrong response. So I get a ton of 5-star reviews where people are just loving the course, and if I ever have a bad day, I can just go to reviews and read them. Right? It's great when someone loves your stuff on the internet, even if it's just one person. So one thing that I do is there's a feature in the system where I can highlight reviews that I want to highlight. So I put those in there, and it makes the Udemy platform sort of show them on my front page. I always a policy of mine is, even though I get 25 to 30 reviews every single day of the week, I have a policy that twice a week I go through, and anytime someone gives me a review, even if it's just a one-word review that says awesome, I reply. And it's a public reply. So it shows it in there that I responded to the user or to the student. And if they said awesome, I'm going to say something like, thanks so much. Like I'm not going to give them but if they take the time to put a 2-paragraph review in there, I'm going to give them a sentence back. Like I feel like, imagine how, if you look at just even on totally sidebar thing, if you look on Yelp and on Yelp reviews, when people have reviews and the actual owners of that business reply, even if it's just a half of a sentence, that's, to me, that's awesome. I got excited one time when an owner of a bar that didn't have the beer I wanted replied and said, "We're going to have that for you next month." Like that made my week when they did that.
It's a two-way street. These people are doing exactly what you want them to do, and to ignore it is ridiculous. And I tell business owners all the time, and this is actually a section in the book. This is a chapter in the book called Social Reviews, and it basically is like, respond, positive or negative. It doesn't matter. That person is providing you feedback, and you can learn from it. And I love that you do it every couple of days. I do it every couple of weeks. I mean, it's like, this could help you get to that next step. And then oftentimes people just are like, I'm pissed off, I'm not going to respond to this because it was negative. I'm like, what if you could turn that negative into like a raving fan just because you did what you said? You talked to a bar owner, and then he had that beer for you, and you're like, oh wow, that's really special. I wasn't going to go back, but I definitely am now. I mean, it's
Exactly.
it boggles my mind that people don't do simple things like respond. If you get a phone call and someone leaves you a message, are you going to call them back?
Right.
I hope so.
Yeah. 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 Well, and if you're not, then yeah, you got other problems.
Mm.
You got to be a nice person.
What are the tools necessary to create a course? Online, like hardware and software.
Well, it's funny. If you have, I would say that it's very similar to in your thought process about your tooling. It's very similar to if you're making a product or some other business, and that if you're going into a market where people are just craving and desperate for that thing you're making, it doesn't matter what you're using. If you're on a red hot topic, or if you're solving a real problem for people that is definitely there, you can be on your Apple EarPods, or regular headphones with a regular laptop mic. And I've seen courses on Udemy where they're using laptop mics, a laptop webcam, and on a Mac, I'm not sure about on Windows, but on a Mac you have QuickTime built in that will actually record your screen for free right on the QuickTime, as well as your webcam. And so you could put together something on a course without buying really anything. If you just had a Mac laptop, probably you can do the same thing on Windows. But when you want to take it to that sort of A game, and that's sort of the approach I took from the get-go, was luckily I'm in a field where you can make decent money consulting and working. So I had a little bit of dough that I could spend on a budget, and I went out and bought a Logitech webcam, specifically the Brio 4K, which totally don't need, but it's their highest end webcam that's 4K, which I'm not even recording at 4K on it, but I just wanted it for future proofing the webcam. So I wanted a webcam up high, and if you've ever been with someone on a webcam that's in their laptop, it's like it's down here and you're getting the chin, and so that little stuff like that matters to some people. And I went and got some people just don't care, they want the content. Other people will say, man, your voice, and or you're really blue on the webcam or something like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it should be like, mine is up a couple of. I'm 6'3", so mine is lifted up, I don't know, 9 inches from the ground. It's I don't even know what this thing is, but I'm looking directly at the camera, not looking down at the camera, right? You're looking directly at the camera, and that's important.
Yeah, I started out with a Blue Yeti microphone, and so that was even better than maybe the headset microphone or the microphone in your laptop. And it's now on Amazon for, I think, less than $100, like $80. I bought it years and years ago when it was like $200. And on that mic, the best things you can do is actually get it as close to your face as possible, because then it picks up more of the undertones, especially if you're a male and you have a deeper voice. And at one point I decided I was going to buy this one, so this is now my new favorite. This is the Rode Podcaster, and the simplest thing for me was to get a microphone that was USB based. And so on a lot of tutorials you'll see on the web about how to record on YouTube and stuff like that, they'll have you getting this whole setup of a mixer and all these professional quality stuff. And I've found that if you're doing videos for the internet, you don't really need all that anymore. I mean, you can totally do that, but I haven't had any issues yet. And the setup is super simple. I just plug everything with USBs into my laptop, and I'm ready to go. So really, it's the Camtasia software we mentioned, the webcam from Logitech, a podcasting mic, so Rode Podcaster or a Blue Yeti, and that's really all I need to get going. That there's a bunch of other little things I use, but those are esoteric and unnecessary, really.
What's the size of each video? Not the length, but so an hour of content, like, is that how many gigs?
Ooh.
Because if you're shooting at 4K, I mean, I know you didn't, right? But if you take a quick, if for example, if you use QuickTime's Record and you do it on maximum, it's like a gig a minute.
Yeah. So I had to buy extra storage. So a project in Camtasia, and it's many times that when you start to think about it. So you're recording so I'm doing everything at 1080p, sort of the gold standard of YouTube and Udemy and all the sort of videos on the internet right now. I shudder for the days when we're actually having to do 4K for everything as the minimum, because that's really going to eat up a lot of space. But I'd say the recordings, you're probably about on target that a 5 to 10 minute video is definitely going to be 1 to 2 gig minimum, because I'm recording my face and the screen at the same time, and the screen takes up far less space than the web video. The web video is by far the hardest working, biggest space taking thing. But then you have to put it on the Camtasia, and Camtasia is going to bring it in and make copies of it into its own proprietary file format. And so now you've got another copy so I have the raw video, then the copy in the project file, and that project file for a 5 to 10 minute video can be anywhere between 500 meg and 2 gig. And then you have the output format, which is itself probably 500 for just a 5 to 10 minute video, 500 a gig in size, that you're going to upload that output format. And yeah, so it's a lot.
Yeah, so I go back between Premiere and iMovie, just depending on which one I want to use that day. And these recordings are like 7 or 8 gigs each. And so I'm constantly having to trash the content, edit fast enough, and then trash the content so that there's enough size on my laptop that I can actually do that. And now that we're doing 2 a day and we're about to be doing 3 days a week, I'm going to have to be really quick on the editing to get this, because it ends up being a 20 or 30 gig file per video, because I save it. In this case, I'm saving it. Then I split it so that it's 2 tracks. Then I have to upload it to Premiere, iMovie. Then I have to edit it, and then I have to push it out. And all of those things are, I don't know, 5 to 10 gigs each.
I know, it's crazy. And I was lucky enough that after 9 months of the course and bringing in the royalties from that, I treated myself to a new 15-inch MacBook Pro, which does my video processing a lot faster. It can handle more monitors, stuff like that. But one of the things is I got a terabyte of SSD hard drive in it, and that sounds insane, but they actually make them with 2 terabytes now built in. And that's the reason is when you're making long-term, 8-hour courses, and then you're taking that content and you're spinning it up for other things. Like I'm putting a little bit on YouTube, putting a little bit on Twitter. And so you're making new projects out of all those. So each piece of content is replicated over and over again. I found myself doing all sorts of tricks where Google Drive and iCloud both now allow the option where you can have the file stored permanently in the cloud, and there's just a link on your hard drive so that when you run it, it actually has to download real time. So that's a space-saving thing locally, but then you got to have killer internet, because you're talking about downloading a gig file when you want it on the fly. So I've tried lots of things, and I think the new Drive, I think it's called Drive Sync or Drive Stream, I think, from Google Drive, is it's an add-on for Mac or Windows, and it basically lets you choose which of the files you want downloaded, and it'll still show the links to all of them, but when you double-click on the file, it'll have to wait for it to download over the internet. So that's not great when you're traveling. Don't do that. But obviously, you can always get USB drives and other external things to help too.
Talking with Bret Fisher, bretfisher.com. It's episode 91 of the 1004 show. We'll have all these links to all the tools that he's talking about, plus his course, in the show notes and the description. I want to know a little bit about you now, though, Bret. What is Bret Fisher the best in the world at?
The best in the world. Well, right now I would say I'd like to be the best in the world at talking about Docker in front of thousands of people. But I really think that when you think long term and you think about it, I would say that I'm really good at failing and getting back up. And I think just like all of the books we read about Richard Branson or anyone else that you imagine massive success of, and then you read about all their failures that really is only usually in the biographies because they don't really talk about them publicly, or at least it doesn't get any news, right? Is that being able to start a business and then failing at it and quitting, and then starting another one and failing at it and quitting, changing your career in your 40s and then maybe it not working, and then just not being basically having enough self-talk to yourself that you're good enough. You know, it's that whole I'm good enough and I'm worthy, or whatever that the guy from Saturday Night Live, I think, that it's the ability to, you know, whether I'm in the gym and because I'm a big fan of CrossFit and failing at a deadlift that isn't even my PR for the deadlift, and then just coming back the next week and crushing it or whatever, or starting a business that I tell all my friends about, and then 2 years later we shut it down because it totally sucked and lost money on it. I'd like to think that I'm one of the best at that.
How do you learn from those experiences, though? Like, how do you make sure that you don't make that mistake a second time?
Right. Crush. Yeah. It's like, how do you not have a crushing defeat that kills your soul? Right. So I've never done something where in the worst case scenario, I'm homeless on the street. You read books about people that created a company and they mortgaged their house and they double mortgaged their car or whatever, and they did all these things and they took all their parents' retirement money. And I would say that I am pretty risky, but I am not that risky. So I always make sure that if any endeavor I'm going into, that it may take a few years to dig yourself out of the hole, but it's not going to end friendships. It's not going to ruin my relationships with my family. It's not going to demoralize me to the point that my identity as a person is in question. So, some might say that that's leaving a back door. I would argue that it's just being more balanced in life. And my wife is luckily my anchor, and she loves to. She's really good at making sure that I do have that balance, and that I'm getting time away from the office, and I'm having fun, and that whenever we go for some crazy business idea after having too much wine at 1 a.m. and we thought up something new that we're going to try, that we do it in a way that to a lot of people is completely risky. You're going to do what? You're going to take out a loan on a credit card and use high interest credit card to fund a new startup. They think that's crazy, but to us, that's just normal business acumen.
I know I've done that. I know I've done that.
I think it's leaving a little left in the tank, right? Leaving a little left in the tank, sure. And then making sure that you're not so overcommitted that you're going to walk away with this with less friends if it doesn't work out.
How many hours a week are you working on this?
Probably 60 to 80, which is less than normal. Which this year has really forced me. At first, it was insane. It was 7 days a week when we were making the first course, because we had a deadline of April 1st. That was a hard set deadline that Udemy gave us. So we did everything we could to get it launched. We weren't taking days off. That was very temporary. Since then, I've learned to get my weekends back, which is amazing. If you're in a small business or a startup and working for yourself, you may remember what those days were like. And I've been working really hard this year to do that. But the thing is that when you're doing something that you're excited about and passionate about, I actually lose sleep at night and have to get up and work because I can't sleep. I'm so excited about things. So that's something new for me that even previous startups and business ideas was not happening, where you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with an idea and you're like, I cannot stop thinking about this. I'm going to have to go downstairs and work for an hour before I can go back to sleep. So my goal is to get it down to 40 to 60, a reasonable person's working week. And hopefully that'll be the 2018 goal.
Would you say that you are one of the top Udemy courses, top 1%?
Yeah, I think by my own guessing, I'm probably definitely top 500, maybe in terms of, when I say top, what I mean is growth over time, because I've only been there a year. There's people that have 600,000 students over a course of 3 years, and
So
I've been
it went
there.
up since April of 2017, so it's not even a full year?
Yeah, so I'm not even 1 year yet. My hope is that we're crossing 40,000 students in the first year, and then it just keeps accelerating. And that I'm probably very lucky with the topic I'm on, because it's a red hot topic in the IT industry right now of Docker. So I don't expect every course to be anything like that. We launched the second course, and it's really only selling at 1/10. But that's in the online learning scene. And it's a lot like just in general online content. You might have one thing you're really known for, and then you do a lot of ancillary stuff that rounds out that main topic, that sort of buffers the bottom line a little bit and allows your audience to get widened. So I don't really expect to have a 500,000 people anytime soon, but the top 10, top 15 authors all have over 200,000 students, I think.
Well, what's something about Bret Fisher most people don't know about?
Um, I grew up in Missouri, and my first 6 years out of high school, I was enlisted in the Navy. It's something that probably, I think, in my previous life everybody knew, but once you get into I moved to Virginia because of the Navy, and then when you get out and you get known for technology and startups and stuff like that, people don't really realize that 25 years ago you were wearing bell bottoms to work and a sailor cracker jack hat.
Well, thank you for your service. If someone that's thinking about doing a course, starting a course as the author or publisher, what advice would you give them?
Pick your topic, and it doesn't have to be something that you are the world's smartest person in, but pick a topic that you're excited about, because making a course or making any content long term on the internet, when I mean long term for more than a few months, you've got to really love it, because you're going to be, like we talked about, the project process of creating the content ideas, creating the topics, creating your PowerPoint slides, creating all that stuff, then recording and editing and launching and marketing and all that stuff. That's going to wear on you very quickly if it's not something that you're actually a topic that you're super excited about. So I think that is the most important thing to get started. And then the second most important thing, which I did not know, is start working on your audience, getting an initial audience now that you have to talk to about. And I was lucky. I adopted the Udemy audience because of their support and because it was a hot topic. Not everyone's going to have a fire red hot. If you're a yoga fan and you're going to do a yoga course, you're going to have to go find out where the yoga people are on the internet and talk to them about your course and share your course with them.